Christy, welcome to the Big Skip Energy Podcast. How are we?
I am well, thank you. How are you, Skip?
Splendid. Thank you for coming on the show. Guys, I am excited to bring to you Dr. Christie McMullen. Christy, take a minute, introduce yourself to the listeners, please.
Sure. Hi, my name is Christy, and I help people make work fun so that they don't want to quit. And because we flat out quit things that aren't fun. I'm an educator turned entrepreneur who has a knack for work in a room and making sure that people feel comfortable in my presence. And that's something that's translatable into your business as well.
100%, 100%. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today is really kind of that whole movement that you're creating here. So the productive joy, right? Talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to get started going down this path.
So the reality is that I really do enjoy fun. If you were to give me a personality test, I'm an enthusiastic optimist on the Enneagram. I am a slinky, which is
Yes.
yes, a slinky. You can be a teddy bear, a magnifying glass, or a slinky. I'm a slinky. Slinkies are fun, right? I release a whole lot of dopamine. And yet, the reason I do it is because our brains only fire neurons when there is some sort of emotion tied to what we're doing. But often, particularly in the workspace, we evoke zero emotion, or the only emotion we evoke is annoyance or frustration.
Negative, yeah.
Yeah. And the problem with that is that if you want people to remember what they're doing or to get better or to be productive, there
Mhm.
has to be joy involved. Harvard did a great study a couple years back called the Happiness Advantage, and they studied people and their level of happiness, and they found that happy people were 31% more productive than unhappy people. And that by itself should tell us that if we're not evoking some joy in our people, then we're really missing the mark. So, what I'm doing is really trying to help people understand one, the value of joy, and then how to produce it in workspaces so that people don't want to quit.
Okay. So before we get started in that, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a minute.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what I think, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask you this anyway. There are people out there that say, you know what, Christy, this is work. Work is not supposed to be fun. Work is supposed to be work. All right. What would you say to people that have that outlook?
I understand completely and have seen it many times. And I guess my question back is how good do you want to be at your job? Because our bodies, when we are releasing dopamine, are more productive. And that 31% more productive piece should make people look at the bottom line and go, oops, maybe I am missing the mark here. So, yes, I understand that work should be serious and I have a serious job. And that's true. But your brains can't fire if you're not evoking that emotion. And the reality is, people quit things that aren't fun, right? Think about it this way: people don't go to a movie a second time if they didn't like it the first time, and they don't go on a second date if they hated the first date. But we ask people to come back to work day after day in misery. Why?
Mm,
It doesn't have to be unhappy, but see, I have a really specific definition of fun that is true for all. Okay, so
let's hear it out.
I
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I'm 100% extrovert. I love people. I want to talk to the people. I recharge around people, and which makes me a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like, and
Well, you do work a room very effectively, but you're not overpowering. You're not someone that you see coming though, and you're like, oh shit.
oh, great. Here she comes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. So that's not what you are. So you do a good job of that. And
oh,
that's
good. I'm
that's what I
glad
want
to
to know.
hear that.
Yeah.
But as an extrovert, I love to work a room. I love to go to happy hour and meet people and find new friends, right? But my introverted friends would go to happy hour exhausted and they'd leave even more exhausted. So that's why I've come up with this definition of fun that I think
But not so happy.
right. Well, it spans all types of people. So here are my three things that equal fun. Fun means people feel valued and appreciated. Fun means people have a voice and they're allowed to use it. And fun means people are able to leverage their talents for the greater good. So your original question was about whether or not, work and fun should be mutually exclusive. If I define fun that way, then they can't be mutually exclusive if you want to keep your people, right? So the valued and appreciated has to be bigger than, the best employee of the month gets a free parking spot in the front, right? That's great. But if I have 200 employees and 12 months in a year, it's going to be a really long time before I celebrate all my people. So what are we doing to say thank you? What are we doing to let people know they're seen? How are we celebrating people in a way that makes them feel valued? Because if I feel valued, I keep showing up for you, right? So that's valued and appreciated. Then the idea of having a voice, we frequently make decisions outside of the people who have to implement the decisions. And the problem with that is I don't feel heard. I stop speaking up. I stop doing my best. I'm no longer giving you what you need from me. And that's quitting, right? It might be quiet quitting. I might still show up to
There's
work.
something we haven't heard in a few years.
Right. And so we've got to be thoughtful about, am I bringing to this space my voice? And is my voice being heard to change practice? Or are you just asking for lip service? Because those are two different things. And that's not fun. And then the last one is leveraging people's talents. If I know that the people I'm working with and for know who I am and know what I'm good at, and let me do those things, I keep showing up. But if you are asking me to do something that is outside my unique genius, I simply can't keep doing that without suffocating. So I look at it this way. I told you magnifying glass, teddy bear, slinky, and what am I forgetting? Paperclip, because I'm not one. So if you are one of those four things, which we all are, that's great. But when I do this personality test with teams, they often say, well, Christie, I'm all four. And that's true because we morph into what we need to be.
Everybody has different sides of their personality.
Sure. Here's the problem. I am a slinky with teddy bear tendencies. That means I am a big idea person who likes to take care of people also. If you ask me to be a paperclip, which is the person who holds it all together and is very linear in their thinking, and they build the to-do lists and make sure things are organized, I can do that for a while, but the longer I'm doing that, the longer I'm wearing a mask. And when you wear a mask for too long, you start to suffocate. And you need to take it off, right? So I need to be able to operate in my zone of genius regardless of my job description. So everybody has a job description. That's great. I'm not going to be great at everything on my job description. So why is it still on my job description? Why aren't we letting people operate in that unique genius and leverage their talents so that we can be better together? So that's my definition of fun, which is why I don't think that fun and work can be mutually exclusive.
Okay, so I'm going to push back on you.
Yeah, push.
This is where we get the good stuff, right? So someone might say, hey, you know what? I enjoy 90% of what I do, but that other 10% that I really don't like is still essential. Have to do it. That's why it's still in my job description, right?
I totally agree. Totally agree. You're not going to love everything you do.
Right.
There's a difference between loving it and being bad at it.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, so shifting gears a little bit, there's also a school of thought out there. I don't know if you know who Scott Galloway is. He's a professor at NYU. He has a podcast, all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay.
One of his big things the past several years is to have young people, especially professionals, stop trying to follow their passions and start following their talents. And I think that a little bit coincides with what you're saying. Because if you're constantly struggling to do something, you're not going to enjoy it, which is not a long-term recipe for success. You'll end up dead by a heart attack at 48,
Right.
So, I mean, how do you feel about that?
I couldn't agree more. And I think that the perfect scenario is when your talents and your passions coincide. But that's not always true, right? Like I might be really good at spreadsheets, but I don't love them, right?
Right.
And so it's okay to be doing those things that we're good at and not love them, as long as there is an outlet somewhere that lets you follow those passions.
Yeah.
If you are not passionate about anything that you're doing, that's where the problem lies. So I have a good friend. She's actually the owner and CEO, founder of NAN, a Nationwide Appraisal Network.
Yes, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yes, the Joni Pilgrim, who said that if it keeps falling off of your to-do list, it's probably because it doesn't belong on your list. Meaning, I'm going to avoid the things that are not things I'm good at, things I feel like I can execute well on, things that I am not necessarily talented in. and I'm going to keep avoiding them. And the reality is they're probably not for me to do. That doesn't mean you get to shirk work. That doesn't mean that you get to push away the things that you don't like. It's the things that you're genuinely not good at that we're constantly asking people to do, which is why people quit, right? People quit when I don't feel like I can ever be good at my job. I don't know how to do my job well. I don't have role clarity. I am not good at these things. Nobody's ever shown me. And that's where actually we help. So our company is called Intentionality Group, and we help build that role clarity so that people are able to be equipped to be good at their jobs. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to suck at my job today. But some
And I
people,
wake up thinking I'm going to suck at my job
you
today.
might think that part, but they're not wanting to be, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to suck. And yet there are a lot of people out there operating in spaces they have no business being in because nobody's ever taken the time to say, here's how you're good at it. So if you think about people you've mentored or people you've coached, right? You're coaching them to understand how to operate in a way that is both successful and fruitful, productive, right? But why do we assume that people just automatically know how to do things because they have a degree in it or because they've, done it
Yeah.
before or whatever? We have to equip people to be good at their jobs. And that's truly what Intentionality Group is designed to help do, is to help leaders, first of all, understand their teams well enough to know where the deficits and gaps are, and then how to fill them in a productive way so that people are equipped to do their jobs well. Because when they are, they stick around forever.
That's true. That's very true. So let me ask you this then. There's another argument to be made out
Yeah,
there.
no, argue away.
Yeah, now keep in mind it's not me. I'm just saying this. So this is not me getting on you, right? That say, okay, I've got to embrace. It's the pro sports analogy that I use a lot. It's you see them on Sunday. That's the part everybody loves. That's the part that they really love. What you don't see is all the stuff, the grind, the hurt, the pain, the nasty that they go through the rest of the time. So they have the opportunity to do that. If you ask them, they'd say, I hate doing all this, but I know it's necessary to get where I want to be here. What do you say to that? Because
So you got
that type of thing, especially in sales, can be that can be a mindset.
you got to put in the reps. Period. Doesn't matter what you're doing. And that's what the professional athletes are doing, right? They're putting in the reps. You don't love practice as much as you love the game, but you have to love practice enough to give it enough respect to do it well. So the other
Give them that
part,
respect. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, the other part to this is I'm not saying everything should be butterflies and bubbles. I'm not saying that productive joy is always pretty. I'm not saying that it is always something that feels good in the moment. But what it does do is it gives you the ability to see the other side. So I think joy is a choice. And I believe that you can either look for the good or the bad. Both are always there, right? And what you're looking for is what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
we
yeah.
encourage, right? What we encourage people to do is to look for the joy, to look for the good, to look for the positive. So your analogy about professional sports players who love the game, hate the practice. The reality is they don't hate the practice. Their brains don't enjoy the hard, right? Our brains are wired to avoid the hard.
Take the easy route every time.
Every time, right? And so that's that whole, Mel Robbins talks about the 5-second rule. You count backwards from 5 because that's how long it takes your mind to say, nope, not going to do it. What I am encouraging people to do is to look for the good, to focus their attention on what they can do instead of what they can't. So to kind of wrap a bow on that, for those that are watching, if you put your fingers up like this and you look through that teeny tiny little hole that goes between your fingers, that's your
Like you used to
sphere.
do when you were a kid.
Exactly. That's your sphere of control, right? That's it. But if you put your arms out as wide as they'll go, that's your sphere of influence. And I think we miss sometimes the reality that we can influence how we tackle things, how we approach things, how we do the hard, a whole lot more than we can control it. I can't not do those things, but my attitude about them is what's going to determine whether or not they're fruitful on Sunday during the game.
I love it. I love it. So this whole concept really, we're talking about two different things kind of simultaneously, like what you're actually doing, but then also I'm hearing a lot of it is determined by culture and the people that you're with and around. And that sounds like, if I'm understanding it correctly, who you are working with and the environment in which you're working is almost more important than the actual task you're trying to complete. Would you agree with that or no?
I would give it a yes and.
Uh,
I do
it's not improv class. You can't do that.
I do agree that culture is the linchpin to all of this, but culture is what you allow. So in those situations, you have to decide what's acceptable and what isn't for us as a culture in an organization, in a family, and fill in the blank. And then how am I going to operate within it? Those are two separate things. It kind of goes back to I'm going to focus on the joy or I'm going to focus on the crap. Those are my choices. In this case, too, I think it's a choice to create the kind of environment you want to be a part of by stretching that influence. And then also choosing the right fit for you, because I might love a certain organization for its culture, and you might hate that exact
Oh,
same.
it's completely subjective. Yeah.
So you also have to know yourself well enough
Mm.
to know what sort of environment you're looking for. Buck the system hard if I'm micromanaged. This is a micromanagement system, not going to do well there. I really want autonomy in my work. Okay, here I have it. I really need someone to govern me a little bit, otherwise I'll get nothing done. So it's also, you said, is it about the people? It is about the people, but do the people align with what you need versus what the organization needs? And when those two come together, those are your successful organizations.
The way that my mind likens it is like a mathematical formula, function. F of X is the output, is going to be, I know you'll laugh at me because I'm a big nerd. I get it.
I'm right there with you in the nerdiness.
Yeah. So, but then the actual components of that function are everything you just said. The higher the value for X is going to mean how well everything goes together. So, yeah, no, I think that's great. One of the things that really caught my attention a minute ago, you said that basically looking for the good in everything you're not walking around with like the perma smile. You're not, you don't have I call it Pollyanna syndrome where you're walking
Sure.
around like, oh, everything's great, sunshine and rainbows. That's not what you're talking about. One of the things that I teach on, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is that, real positivity is not neglecting or ignoring negative emotions. It's the ability to acknowledge them and then move on and see what outcomes you can get from whatever has transpired, occurred, whatever you got in front of you. How do you feel about that?
I couldn't agree more. So good job on that.
Oh,
And it
good.
goes, well done, high five. No, I equate that back to that sphere of influence, right? And thinking about, okay, I can't control this situation,
Yeah.
but I can influence my reaction. Oh, I can control my reaction. I can influence how I react in this situation. I can influence how others feel in that same space. I think that's probably the number one underutilized superpower on the planet because we feel done unto instead of being a part of the solution.
Yeah.
So, oh, well, they, yeah, who's they?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Let's define that a little bit because if you're a part of the organization, you're part of
You're
the
part
they.
of they, by the way.
Yes. And so stop putting the blame elsewhere and decide which parts of it you are going to choose to help influence or you're going to choose to walk away. Everything isn't the right fit, but is it that you that's being the difficult one or is it the organization? Because it could go both ways.
Yeah, no. So let me ask you this then. Whenever you are working with a company and you're working on this concept, right? The intentionality, the whole thing. I know, you know how much I love the whole thing, right? So you're absolutely right. Where it does come down to the individual's willingness to be part of they, right? Because how often can you walk around the halls of a company that doesn't matter what industry it is, and you say, "Well, what's wrong?" Well, they've got me doing this, or
Yeah.
why is it the way it is? I don't know. They just decided to do it. Who the hell is they anyway? Right. But when you're working with a company, how do you determine essentially like, you know, who is really in there for the results and moving forward and improving versus who is there and really needs to get off the bus?
Well, we don't have a magic wand. I do have a magic wand, but it came from the dollar store. It doesn't have any actual magic in it. But we don't sprinkle pixie dust over an organization and say, you are all going to be better
Of course
now
not. Of course
here.
not.
But what ultimately has to happen is there has to be some ownership taken. And then there also has to be some very clear targets for what it will look like when it's the way you want it to be. I think our number one mistake that's made in organizations and in life in general is that we don't know what it looks like to be fixed. We just want somebody to fix it.
Yeah.
So we'll say, I want to be more successful, or I want to, I want our organization to be more cohesive. Okay. What does that look like? Let's set that very clear target. It will look like X. We've all heard about SMART goals and all those things. It's really about funneling down all the noise.
Which is a side note, by the way. Not everyone has heard about SMART goals since I've started doing this full time. I have been astonished at the number of people that do not know that concept.
Oh my
Anyway,
goodness.
that's a
Specific, measurable,
yeah.
wait, SMART,
Let's see if you can do it.
achievable, realistic is the word, and timed.
There you go. Yeah. All right.
Yes,
But
smart.
anyway, yes.
Okay, so if everybody doesn't know, now you know what a SMART goal is. It's about putting parameters, right? We all need guardrails. It's kind of like children. If you think about the best behaved children are the ones that have been disciplined and know where their guardrails are. The same is true in business. If you don't have very clear guardrails for what's acceptable and what isn't, culture gets out of hand real fast, right? If you don't have a very clear target for what it will look like if this is successful, then you're never going to hit it. You're just aiming at
love
this
that.
wall
Yeah.
over here and you're hoping for the best.
That's the why. Why are we doing X, Y, and Z? To get this result.
Right. To
Yeah.
bring in a consultant. Okay, so you're going to bring in a consultant. Here comes intentionality group. What are we hoping to
Why?
achieve?
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we do is we actually partner with a company called Elation, and Elation has built this beautiful assessment that does two things. It does the individual's health and the organization's health. The individual's health is an instant result that they get that says, here are some stressors for you and here are some buffers for you. Right, because now I took this and I got something from it, right? Me as a person. But then it also spits out a whole lot of intentional data around, okay, your sales team, as long as there are at least 5 people on the team, it will spit it out as individual teams. Your sales team stresses about this and their buffers are this. Your Gen Zers are stressing about this and their buffers are this. Your females in your organization are stressing about this. What that does is it paints the right picture for that target. It says, okay, everybody doesn't feel this way. Actually, only this department feels this way, and it's all led by this particular leader. Let's start there. Versus everyone thinks, or we all have. Okay, well, what does the data say? If the data is not telling us that, then you're actually just making it all up. So going back to your original question, it's about
Extreme generalities. Yeah.
right. Let's funnel down the real need instead of the perceived need, and then let's tackle that specifically.
I love it. So, as far as someone who's saying, all right, I know we need to make a change, what are the most common catalysts that people reach out to you and say, hey, Christie, I need help with X, Y, or Z? Because what you do covers a lot of different ground. What do you hear most commonly?
So frequently we get called in when there's been some sort of acquisition and you have 2 new organizations becoming one new organization together, but you had 2 complete leadership teams and now you have one and this person served on it and this person doesn't anymore. How do you navigate those waters? Another space that we are often asked to enter is, our sales team is not having the success that they need and their presentations suck. How do we make them better, right? How do we make them actually hit their target? Because there are 2 major things that we do. We can go in and assist with organizationally, where are your hiccups and how can we create
Organizational health. Yeah.
right? But then also the training aspect of, in order for people to be able to execute on their roles well, what gaps do they have in their learning that we can fill? We don't pretend to be experts in the chemical industry or in mortgages or in, healthcare.
Sure.
But we are experts in learning, particularly adult learning, and how you can get people to understand what it is that they need to know. So that's actually where my book comes in. I wrote a book called Learning Can Stick. And the idea behind the book is, how do you make every interaction safe, logical, fun, and memorable? Those 4 components need to be present in order for any human, adults or otherwise, to actually absorb information.
Mm.
But what we tend to do is we ignore one, two, three, or all four of them, and people shut down. They don't hear what you're trying to say. The problem with that is if I'm the CEO of a company and I give a directive and nobody heard it because it wasn't safe, logical, fun, and memorable, and then I'm wondering why it wasn't executed on, well, dude, you didn't approach it in a way that anybody could gather. So we can actually fix that as well. So those are the
Yeah.
two major spaces that we dance in.
Love it. Love it. Just out of curiosity, what industries do you most commonly work with?
It's funny. We have a pretty strong presence in that real estate mortgage
Mhm. Which
space.
makes sense given,
It
Jason's
does,
background.
given, connections, right? It's all
Mhm.
about who you know. We also have a pretty strong presence in the healthcare space,
Okay.
specifically Medicare, Medicaid.
Okay.
People who work there, we have done quite a bit of training there. And then it's also smaller organizations, 50 and under, who just are choosing to do it differently. So, as an example, I worked with a group of nurses who were all working the same shift and they were having a lot of infighting. This was at an assisted living facility. And so I gave them all a personality test. And then after the personality test, and we knew a little bit about how we operate, I put them in an escape room. And I had the opportunity to watch them in this escape room while they were supposed to get out of said escape room. And what happened was the guy that was running the escape room said, all right, in 15 minutes, you can knock on this door and I will pass a clue under the door to help you get out of this escape room. Okay, great. And the first task that they had to accomplish was to get out of the handcuffs that they were all in. So every person is in a set of handcuffs
Yeah.
and they're trying to get out of this room. 45 minutes go by and they never knocked on the door. And the guy said to me, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, well, he said, this has not ever happened before. I'm like, interesting. I said, why don't you slide
Got
it
some
under the door?
stubborn people. That's what you got.
Yes. So what ended up happening, they did get out with like 12 seconds left because one individual fought so hard all by herself to get them out of this room. So when they were done, we debriefed and I said, all right, we learned at the beginning that your personalities were that you have a whole lot of perfectionists who don't want to appear stupid. That's your core fear. And you have a whole lot of challengers who are pretty sure you're right about things and you don't listen real well to other people's opinions. And so together, you just spent 45 minutes not asking for help, which is what's happening on the floor. You are telling people what to do, but you're not asking anybody anything. And so just having that language allowed them to go from we're not on the same team to we're not only on the same team, but we have the same language to be able to work through the realities of our
Mhm.
situation. So you asked which industries we work in, that works anywhere.
Oh,
That
sure.
particular one was a group of nurses who just
Very
needed to be
interesting.
reminded that they weren't flying solo.
I love it. I love it. Very cool. All right. So, Christy, we're drawing to an end here today. So, if somebody wants to learn more about you, who you are, what you do, where should they go?
Well, you can find me on all socials, right?
Yep.
So if you just type in Dr. Christie McMullen, and Christie is spelled Christie, that matters because people think it's Christine. It's not. It's just Christie. Think Christie Brinkley. That's actually who I was named after. So Chrissy Lee, Chrissy Brinkley. Anyway, Dr. Christie McMullen. But intentionalitygroup.com is the best place to be able to reach out to us and to just say, hey, I'd like a little more of what you're bringing. And then, of course, I have to put in a shameless plug for Productive Joy
Naturally.
because that is our podcast. And we are up to about 180 episodes or so and going strong and having a blast. So, any of those
Wicked.
places.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and spending a few minutes with me. It's been fun. It's been fun. It's a great concept that people need to learn more about.
Well, thank you, Skip. It was a genuine honor. I appreciate it.